Please share your thoughts in comments and like this video. The story begins in the modern world where a middle-aged man was working in his office. He had a black hair and black eyes which could be seen through the glass he wore. That's when a junior of his called him. He requested him to complete his share of work as he had to go to a party later, and he had also agreed to do that. After finishing his work, he went to the railway station and was waiting for the train to go back home. It was rush hour and many people pushed him aside and boarded the train. Seeing there was no space for him to stand, he decided to board the next one. He was just a normal average man and he was 35 years old. He was born into a normal family and he works at a normal company with a mediocre salary. However, the fact he had never had a girlfriend could be considered abnormal. He finished his daily life schedule and entered his home. Suddenly he felt a surging pain in his heart. He fell down while clutching his chest and his consciousness faded. That day, that average middle-aged man died of a heart attack. When he opened his eyes, he found a beautiful woman before him. She spoke an unfamiliar language which he couldn't understand a bit. He was sure that he had collapsed in his apartment. He wondered if it was a hospital and she was the nurse in charge of him. He concluded that it must be a very old hospital as they had used lamps for lighting. He found out that he couldn't be able to move his body. But he was at least glad that he was saved. Suddenly he heard a dog bark followed by a dog which had wings entered his sight. Seeing that creature, he wondered if he had come to the afterlife. A maid entered the room and talked to that beautiful woman. But he wasn't able to understand their conversations as their languages were totally different from what he knew. He saw a reflection of a young child on the plate carried by the maid. That's when he realized that he was reincarnated as a baby. That's when he knew that he had been involved in a rather difficult situation. Just like that, 3 years had passed by. His identity in this life is Ars Louvent. He was a dazzling child with black hair and black eyes. A maid came to deliver him tea and was amazed to see a 3-year-old child studying. Ars had completely mastered reading and writing, and he had also become more familiar with this world. The place he was born was known as the Summerforce Empire, which controls the entire Summerforce continent. Since the world map is one he had never seen, it's safe to assume that it was not Earth. Also, in this world, there's a mysterious phenomenon that they call magic. It's like a world straight out of a video game. The Louvent household he was born into are nobles. They govern a small area of land called Lamberg with a population of 1,000 people. The mansion he lives in is so wide and beautiful, just like a castle. There were many servants that took care of him. There's also a chef who lives here who cooks delicious food for every meal. Before his reincarnation, such a grateful life would be absolutely impossible for him. So he was glad to be reincarnated. He thanked this world's creators for creating such an amazing place. And there's one more thing, he seemed to possess abilities where others don't have. He went to the place where the knights were training. He asked them for permission to watch them train once again, which indicated that he had been doing this for some time. The knights praised him for being dedicated when he was only 3 years old. They felt that he would become a great knight. But he wasn't interested in the military arts but a specific soldier. He looked at him and activated his special ability, which was Appraisal. It displayed the stats of the soldier like a video game character. The status reminds him of a certain historical game, Ambition of the Three Kingdoms, which he used to play. The left number is the current ability while the right number is the maximum potential. Ambition stat shows the higher the chance of betrayal, the higher it is. It's also easier for him to see it like that. It also shows which type of weapon one could be able to succeed. The ranks also varied from S to D, where S is the highest. But for some reason, he wasn't able to use Appraisal on himself. It's disappointing, but at the same time he was also scared to see it. The status of Millet, who was training now, had a high aptitude for bow. Technically, he would be good at using a bow. But he's currently training with a spear, and it also seemed that he was not that much good with it. Ars wondered why Millet didn't use a bow and he wanted to see him try it. He went to Millet and called him by his name. At first, Millet was shocked to hear his name from the young master. Ars asked him the reason why he was not using the bow. Millet felt that bow was an uncool weapon as shooting far from the enemy's reach wasn't very manly. But Ars persuaded him to try using it as he felt that he would be good at it. Millet wasn't able to overcome the puppy eyes of Ars. In the end, he agreed to use it even though he had never used it before. The higher-up knight asked him to shoot the bow from the short distance as it was his first time. But Ars denied it and asked Millet to shoot from the regular long distance. Millet was hesitant to do that at first, but he fired it in the end. To everyone's surprise, it hits the bullseye. The higher-up believed that was a fluke and asked Millet to try it again. But he hit the bullseye every time once again, much to the shock of everyone. Everyone praised him for being talented at bow other than the spear which he sucked at. Hearing all the praises, Millet also planned to change his weapon from spear to a bow. He exclaimed that there's no cowardice in fighting, contrary to his first statement. The higher-up expressed his doubts about how Ars knew about Millet's talent in using the bow. Ars wondered if they would believe him if he said that he could see the statuses of others. But there's no way they would believe the words of a 3-year-old child. It was also a problem if they thought that he was weird. So Ars just said that it was just a hunch. The maid came to inform Ars that it was time for dinner, and he left that predicament. He sat at the dining table and marveled at the various dishes lined up in front of him. He felt that the meal was good, which was quite different from the bento he had from a convenience store. He had been eating that ever since he was a salaryman. While he was enjoying the food, his father called out to him. He inquired about how Ars figured out Millet's talent for a bow. He was his father in this world, Ars Louvent. He was 30 years old and he always had a frightening angry face. A great man who was a farmer and became a nobleman with his own determination. He has enough military might to command 10 armies by himself. Raven planned to refine that intuition of Ars. Since Ars would eventually become the Lord, he believed the ability to discern a person's ability was a very important skill as a Lord. Ars also realized that he would become the Lord in the future. He hoped he could keep everyone happy, and for the time being, he decided to study. Raven gave his share of tender dragon meat which Ars liked and asked him to grow up fast. He showed his parental love to Ars and he also accepted it with a smile, mentioning that he would do his best. Few months passed by, Ars continued his studies about this country. He finally managed to find something, and that is his future is not bright at all. In this world he lives in. It's accurate to say that the Summerforce Empire's future is bleak. In the near future, it's very likely this country will enter turbulent times. The government of the empire is corrupt. Because of that, there seems to be revolting farmers in various places. Nobles all across the land are strengthening their own lands. The situation in this country is a free-for-all while battles happening all year long. If this keeps up, Ars is sure that the empire will collapse. He had a feeling that a very large battle would happen soon. If that happens, Ars has to lead his own army into the battle. He felt scared just imagining that. He might have been reborn as the child of a lord, but he's still just a salaryman born in peaceful Japan at the core. He wondered if he would be able to do anything to protect his servants, this land, and the happiness of Lambert's people. Since they had all been so kind to him, he wanted to protect them no matter what. He pondered about a way to do that. Then he remembered his father's words about how the ability to discern a person's ability is a very important skill as a lord. He decided to use that skill to save the people of his land. He went to the village and started to look through all the peoples of his village in order to find the special ability holders. As usual, they were friendly towards him and he began to continue his search. He looked through numerous people, but all of their abilities were just D grade. Some people rarely had C grade ability. But no one had AB rank ability, just like Millet, who he found before. He felt so tired from using too much of his ability, which put a lot of strain on his eyes. That's when an old woman pushed a man out of her store claiming that she had nothing to sell it to him. The man had dark skin and different facial features. His races were called Marca, which were discriminated against in the Summerforce Empire. Marcas are a race from a country beyond the ocean of the Summerforce continent. Most of the Marca people were brought in as slaves and are discriminated against. The man managed to get up and moved away from the store. He sat down near and his stomach growled. He was hungry. That's when Ars provided him bread, much to his surprise. He asked him to eat it and the people spoke ill about him for helping a Marca. But they soon shut their mouths when they came to know that the child belonged to Louvent noble family. The man finally got the bread and ate it. He shed tears upon eating it, as it had been a while since someone showed kindness to him. He thanked Ars with sincerity. Ars asked him to not worry about it and used his ability on him. His name was Ritsu Muses, whose age is 14. He had high stats for almost everything, his ambition is also less. He also had S rank skill in speech and fortitude, a rank in bow, infantry, and weaponry. Ars was shocked to see Ritsu's stats, which were similar to Oda Nobunaga. Ritsu had an overwhelming status with no imperfections. with ability scores comparable to Nobunaga, one of the greatest heroes in Japan. Ars was sure that Ritsu's future would be terrifying. Ritsu finished his food and looked at Ars' curious look. He decided to leave after thanking him. But Ars kept following him. Ritsu asked Ars to not follow him as adults would be angry if they saw that. But Ars paid his words no mind. He needed manpower to protect this land. If he had no power, the others could help him. He could gather talented people with appraisal to strengthen the power of the territory. Ritsu began to run away from Ars as he didn't want to cause trouble for him. Seeing him leaving, Ars decided to ask whether he was interested in becoming one of his servants. Ritsu stopped as he was also shocked to hear that. That's the start of the creation of Ars' strongest territory. Ars once again asked Ritsu to be his servant. But Ritsu refused to believe that and inquired whether they were playing pretend. Ars introduced himself and asked him to be his servant as he felt that Ritsu had an amazing talent. Ritsu wondered how he would know about his talent when they just met. Ars replied that he would know it when he saw it. Ritsu was grateful to Ars but refused the offer. He believed that having a marca with him would damage his reputation. Ars assured him that he would do something about it. But Ritsu refused it and thanked him for the bread. Ars thought that he might never meet someone again with such amazing stats. So he decided to stop him somehow. That's when Ritsu's stomach growled once again. Seems like one bread is not enough to satisfy his appetite. Ars offered him delicious meals made by his chef such as steak, beef stew, meat pies, bread rolls, wine and even cake. He used that as leverage to stop Ritsu. He returned to his mansion with Ritsu behind his back. A servant, Krantz, was waiting for him there. He mentioned how worried they were when Ars left the mansion once again. They would be killed as a punishment if something were to happen to him. Ritsu was amazed to see the mansion up close and found that Ars was really the son of the Lord. Krantz noticed Ritsu as a marca. Ars asked him to prepare food for 2 people. Krantz believed that Ars was just hungry and he needed 2 potions. But Ars was actually planning to eat along with Ritsu. Krantz refused to allow a lowly person like him. But he also wasn't able to say no in front of Ars' puppy eyes who wanted to feed a hungry man. He asked Ritsu to leave after having his fill as even marca would die of hunger. A wide variety of food as always was placed in front of Ars, but Ritsu was served only a small portion of soup. They refused to serve the same food to a marca they served their young master. Ars realized that the discrimination against marcas was deeply rooted in the society. At least everyone he knows thinks that marca is an inferior race. It's widely accepted in society, so he knew that changing it would be futile even if he tried to persuade them. Ars decided to show it through his actions. He jumped from his seat and moved the chair near to Ritsu and sat there. He wanted to eat together and he also planned to share his food. Ritsu was moved by his actions. A maid tried to intervene. But Ars was adamant about it and wanted to treat Ritsu well as he was an important guest. Finally, the maid gave in to his orders and prepared the same meals for both of them. Ritsu enjoyed various dishes which he never had. Ars inquired about his purpose in this town and inquired whether he was a resident. Ritsu explained that he was part of a mercenary group. But in the last war, many members of the group were killed. Even most of the leaders had also died, so it was eventually dissolved. So he wandered around aimlessly and ended up there. But Ars doubted why he didn't join other mercenary groups. Since he had high stats, he was also very capable. But other groups didn't take him in as they believed that marca couldn't be trusted. He had been with the former group ever since he was child and now he had nowhere to go. Ars sympathized with the situation. That's when Krantz asked Ritsu to go back as he had finished his meals. But Ars refused as he had brought Ritsu to the home with the intention of making him his servant. Krantz was shocked to hear that and exclaimed that Lord Raven wouldn't agree to that. In the end, Ars went to his father's office to ask for the permission to make Ritsu as his servant. In the office, Raven listened to all of Ars' reasoning. He agreed to that but mentioned that it was a problem for Ritsu being a marca. Ars was taken back by his father's demon hour. Raven asked Ritsu to go back as there was never a history of marca being a servant. Ars denied that and replied that Ritsu was a very talented person and not having him would be a huge loss. Raven refused to believe that as marca people were considered to be inferior people to Summerforth people. So he doesn't believe that Ritsu had any abilities. But that was just a perception of other people. Ars could see Ritsu's abilities numerically and it was better than the others. He believed that Ritsu was needed for the future development of Lamberk. Ars refused to believe that Ritsu was worthless. He suggested Raven to test him himself of Ritsu's godly abilities. Seeing Ars' determination, Raven wondered where he got the confidence. Ars explained that he could see it. Although he was the one who found Millet's experience, Ars still believed in Ritsu. He was sure that Ritsu had exceptional talent with his intuition just like last time. Raven decided to give a test to Ritsu and planned to accept Ritsu as a soldier if he was talented. Although the soldier position is a little low that of a servant. Ars was glad to hear that, and he was sure that Ritsu would be hired. Raven explained that the test was simple. It was a mock battle between Raven and Ritsu. Ars was shocked to hear that. He objected to his father fighting with a 14-year-old boy. Since Raven also had a natural talent, he believed that it was not fair for an adult to fight against a growing boy. But Raven refused that, as he believed that Ritsu was as talented as Ars. Ritsu's bravery is at 70 while his father's is at 94. If he was given time, Ars believed that Ritsu would be able to defeat Raven, but right now would be difficult. Seeing Ars pondering, Raven mentioned that he would fight seriously but with a handicap. Hearing that, Ars believed that Ritsu stood a chance and agreed to it. Raven made his way to the training grounds after asking them to follow him. Ritsu stopped Ars and inquired the reason for going so far to make a Marca his servant. He wondered if it was sympathy from him. That's when Ars remembered that he had never got Ritsu's opinion on this matter. He believed that Ritsu was not willing to become the servant of the Louvent family and decided to cancel the battle. But Ritsu denied it was not that, and he also wished for it. He just wondered whether it was all possible. He was always persecuted for being a Marca and never believed that he had talent like Ars mentioned. But he had indeed better fighting skills, as he was praised by everyone before. Ars assured him of his talent. He believed in what he saw and Ritsu's talent. Since he would eventually become a lord of this territory, he wanted Ritsu to be there with him. Seeing Ars' faith in him, Ritsu decided to do his best on the upcoming test. After some time, Raven reached the training grounds. The other soldiers were surprised at his visit and wondered about the reason behind it. Raven revealed that he was there to test Ritsu. Everyone turned to see him and was also shocked to see a Marca there. Raven explained that Ares believed Ritsu to have a great talent and he planned to recruit him as a soldier if he passed the test. The other soldiers also refused to believe that Ritsu had any talent considering he was a native of Marca. Raven called Ritsu on the stage and proposed to have a battle with wooden swords. Both of them equipped themselves. Raven asked Ritsu to land one hit on him to pass the test within the next 3 minutes. On the other hand, he won't lose no matter how many hits he takes until he surrenders. He asked the nearby soldier to bring an hourglass to record the time. Raven's brave stats would probably be the best in the whole country. But Ars believed that Ritsu had a chance to win if it was just a single hit. Raven asked Ritsu's name and introduced himself. They started the battle afterwards. Raven jumped high and attacked him, but Ritsu dodged it by retreating backwards. He was shocked to see the strength of Raven, as he had damaged the floor with his strength. He blocked the next attack with his sword. Raven was too fast for him, and even if he had used his full strength, Raven still unfazed. Raven continued his onslaught and Ritsu was still on defense. Ars worried about the current situation as his father was too strong and he overwhelmed Ritsu. That's when the nearby soldier was surprised to see a Marca withstanding the fight with the Lord. They would all be defeated within a single blow. So they marveled to see Ritsu hanging in there till now. On the other hand, Raven was going all out against him. While they were speaking, Raven charged at him and stabbed him in his chest using the gap between his stance. Ritsu wasn't able to block it in time and he was thrown back by the impact. Ars was worried about the current situation. Since it was impossible for Ritsu to beat the greatest swordsman in the country. Ritsu managed to stand back on feet and Raven inquired whether he still wanted to continue the fight. Ritsu was out of breath, but he refused to give up. He remembered the words of Ars of wanting him to be on his side. So he engaged in the battle once again. Ritsu's expression had changed totally from before. Raven was shocked to see the change and Ars also noticed it. Ritsu started to take the initiative this time. Raven was confident that he would be able to see every move of Ritsu. But he was shocked to see him disappearing from his sight. He charged at him at full strength but slid between his legs. Others were also shocked to see the unconventional move. Raven also noted that, but he could see that it was a distraction. Ritsu was probably coming from above to attack. He used the window's bright light to shield his movements. It was tough for anyone to clearly spot the direction of the blade at that point. But Raven managed to block it. It was such an unexpected attack, but Raven's reaction was also amazing. Ritsu was shocked to see Raven manage to block that. He couldn't be able to do that as a surprise attack again and pondered about a new way. To everyone's surprise, Raven concluded the test. It was seen that a few strands of his father's hair were falling. It was evident that Ritsu managed to graze him. Everyone was shocked to see that and wondered about Ritsu's identity. Raven announced that Ritsu had passed the test and recruited him as the soldier. Ars congratulated Ritsu and thanked his father. Raven admitted that it was just like Ars mentioned that he could feel Ritsu's talent in swords. He was sure that he would become a great swordsman in the future. He also realized that Ars' ability to see talent is the real deal. Even though it was an important ability for a lord, he was also worried if Ars would be able to control that power in the future. Ars also realized that there's a high chance that he would be betrayed if he wasn't able to control a strong servant in the future. However, there was only a chance for it and it might not happen. But Raven believed that he could become a great noble and even had the chance to become an emperor. Ars was shocked to hear that. Raven mentioned that he was just kidding about it as there was only a less chance for that to happen with such a little territory. But he also wouldn't be able to imagine the future of the Louvent family, and so he left the training grounds. After Raven left, everyone gathered around Ritsu and praised his skills. Some even asked him to battle against them. But Ritsu refused it as his hands were trembling from the previous fight and he wasn't even able to hold the sword properly. They also agreed to that as the opponent was none other than Lord Raven. Ars was glad as it seemed everyone had acknowledged Ritsu. Finally he had taken his first step in building the strongest territory. After some time had passed, Ars knocked at the servant room where Ritsu lives. He inquired whether the new outfit fitted him. Ritsu came out with his new servant outfit. He wondered if it looked weird as it was his first time wearing these kinds of clothes. But Ars complimented that it looked great on him. Ritsu wondered if it was really okay for him to live inside the mansion. Ars assured him to not mind it as he also became Ars' personal servant. Ritsu wanted to help Ars for his kindness even if it was a little. But once again he inquired whether it was okay for him to be a servant. Ars shouted at him to stop asking that question, which he had already done nearly 30 times. Ars mentioned that it was not a dream to be hired as a soldier in a small territory. But Ritsu exclaimed that the entire story seemed like a dream to him. As they moved for some distance, Ritsu stopped. He sat down on his knees. He was grateful to Ars as he would have been dead in the streets without him. He swore to serve him for the rest of his life to return his generosity. Ars foresaw a future where Ritsu would save him from many predicaments without betraying him. He looked forward to his future alongside Ritsu. Please like and subscribe to see the future endeavors of Ars. Click on the notifications icon to know more interesting stories like this.